Thanks for joining me again today. The National Institutes of Health, based right here in Montgomery County, is essential to both our local economy and to the health and safety of people across the country and, in fact, around the world. Positive impacts of research don't have national boundaries. NIH employs about 18,000 people on its main campus in Bethesda. When you include FDA and other parts of the Department of Health and Human Services, also headquartered in Montgomery County, HHS is the largest employer in the county. The people who work at NIH and HHS are doing work that saves lives. They conduct groundbreaking research, develop life-saving treatments, and help us understand the causes of diseases. And that work is now under threat from the Trump administration and its allies, including Elon Musk and his so-called DOGE advisors. Let's be clear, there's no legitimate justification for what they're doing. They aren't improving efficiency. It has nothing to do with efficiency. They're undermining public health. And they're using the guise of attacking DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as if understanding that drugs and treatments may impact different people differently and requires research to ensure that all people aren't given ineffective treatments. It's just common sense. It fits their racist pattern of suggesting that something that benefits non-white people and women isn't worth doing if white men don't benefit from it. But we know better. For decades, drugs were tested almost exclusively on white males. That's not how science should work. People of different races, ethnicities, and genders often respond differently to medications because they have slightly different genetic makeups. If you ignore those differences, health outcomes get worse and drugs become less effective. So the result of cutting these efforts will be that more Americans get sick, suffer longer, die faster, and lose trust in the treatments that were designed with their genetic makeup in mind. And there's another and even more sinister motive behind shutting down this research. NIH and FDA don't just work on cures. Like you'd expect from science, they look to identify causes, because even better than treating a disease is preventing it. I think most of us would agree on that. It is the research into causality that often finds links to things like cigarettes, asbestos, DDT, PFAS, or pesticides, microplastics, or pesticides like Roundup that are linked to cancer, as well as other illnesses. And there's a lot more. When you find a cause that arises out of our environment, the logical response is to regulate what you've allowed to put into our environment so that what we're exposed to doesn't make us sick, doesn't deform babies, doesn't cause us to die prematurely. Those regulations are what DOGE and the president want to kill. They want to make sure that people don't know the risks posed by environmental hazards and don't know who's responsible for putting them at risk and don't demand the government stop permitting things that can cause us harm. Many of the people pushing these cuts are deeply connected to industries that create the pollutants, including through massive campaign contributions. And they don't want the kind of research to exist because it could lead to, God forbid, regulation. What we're seeing is a deliberate effort to weaken the institutions that hold corporations accountable for the harm they cause. This isn't policy, it's a power play. It puts profits over people, and the people behind it know exactly what they're doing. It's malevolent, it's harmful, and it has to be stopped. We're going to keep standing up for people who work at NIH and HHS. We're going to fight for science, for public health, and for the economic stability of this county. This week, I was proud to welcome former NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins to my weekly media briefing. Dr. Collins is one of the most accomplished scientists in this country. He led the Human Genome Project, identified genes tied to major diseases, and served as NIH Director under 3 presidents. After more than 30 years of service, he announced his retirement this month. It was forced. Dr. Collins shared what these changes mean, not just for the mission of NIH, but for the thousands of people who work there, and for communities like Montgomery County that depend on strong public health institutions. It was an honor to have him with us, and I want to thank him for everything he's done to improve the health of millions of Americans. And here's a clip from him from this week's media briefing.
A recent estimate is that 99% of the drugs that you all may have in your medicine cabinet have an NIH connection, but they were ultimately picked up to be turned into pills by the private sector and by biotech. This has worked wonderfully. But if you take away the foundation of basic discoveries and translational science that NIH does, then you've removed all of the feeding that needs to happen for the private sector to be successful. I kind of wish the private sector would make some more noise right now about this, because their future is at risk in a big way by what's happening now.
While the federal government has turned to protecting profits and corporations above protecting people, and especially big pharma, over the health and welfare of people, it's good news that the Maryland General Assembly is looking out for consumers when it comes to prescription drug affordability. House Bill 424, which aims to significantly expand the authority of the state's Prescription Drug Affordability Board, has passed. The bill is filed along with Senate Bill 357. Both would lower the amount consumers pay for prescription drugs across Maryland. Delegates successfully fended off amendments that sought to protect parts of the pharmaceutical industry, and we hope the same thing happens in the Senate. Efforts to expand Prescription Drug Affordability Board goes back several years. Montgomery County Delegate Bonnie Collison has been a leader on these efforts. She has said this legislation is not about controlling prices, but essentially telling drug companies that there's a limit to what people can afford. We have seen the price of drugs rise, sometimes without explanation. At the same time, the companies producing these products have collected record profits, and they push for more in the name of reinvestment. We cannot allow their greed to continue to drain our state financially or put our residents at risk by pricing drugs above reasonable expectations. There are people who are still being forced to choose between medicine, food, and rent. This is not right. You can go to Europe, to Canada, to South America, and buy the same name brand drugs we buy here, but buy them for less than here. There is no rational reason for this other than the lack of political will at the national level to put an end to ripping off Americans in need of affordable drugs. I want to thank the work done by the Maryland Healthcare for All group, a tireless advocacy group that has worked to strengthen this legislation and rally support behind it. With this expanded power, Maryland's Prescription Drug Affordability Board will be a national model and show other states how to end the era of out-of-control drug pricing. Montgomery County's launched a new initiative called Mobilize Montgomery to strengthen the local economy and support local businesses and support employees leaving federal service. The Mobilize Montgomery Coalition includes Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, Chamber of Commerce, Maryland Department of Labor, WorkSource Montgomery, the Maryland Women's Business Center, and Rockville Economic Development. Several local chambers of commerce are also partners. Mobilize Montgomery is a centralized resource hub that ensures that businesses, employees, and residents have access to critical information and support during this challenging time. It is designed to be a one-stop shop for resources. The site offers connections to webinars, job posting websites, and business incentives to the public. Additionally, Mobilize Montgomery will allow local businesses to express their interest in participating in relevant events and enable interested employees to be notified of updated resources and upcoming events. I encourage you to visit Mobilize Montgomery website at mobilize-montgomery.com. And please share this new resource with anyone you know who has been or could be impacted by federal actions and decisions. The public will be able to weigh in on my proposed operating budget for the next fiscal year on Monday, April 7th, Tuesday, April 8th. You can sign up now through the County Council website by calling 240-777-2800. 4 sessions are available starting at 1:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. each day. The deadline to sign up is Friday, April 4th at noon. Last week, the General Assembly and the Governor agreed to a budget framework which will provide greater clarity on the potential impacts of their budget on our proposed FY26 budget. But many costs and benefits are not yet known, and that's what made it impossible to have a final budget when we put it on the table on the 14th. What is unknown are some pretty large dollar figures. The state will likely shift more teacher pensions from the state to the county. Our budget took into consideration the worst-case scenario that is reflected in the 3.5-cent property tax increase. If the budget impacts are reduced, which we are hoping for, Then our revised budget proposal that we'll send to the council when the session adjourns will lower the proposed increase accordingly. I'm proposing this property tax increase now for MCPS to ensure that per pupil funding would increase, as well as cover any losses of state funding. Our budget also proposed an increase to tax credit for homeowners. The $168 credit would offset the tax increase if your house's value was less than $495,000. If your house is assessed at $1 million, your tax would increase by $350, but the credit would reduce that to $182. We tried to introduce some progressivity into the tax, and this is the only way we can do it. Importantly for the schools, this proposed budget improves the ratio of teachers per kids in special needs. There are special legal requirements for these ratios, and MCPS is at the point where they and the county could be held liable for not providing support for the students and their families. In past years, for whatever reason, and I can't think of a good one, previous school administrations failed to bring this problem before the county government. The lack of adequate staff and proper placements that the staff has allowed has had a serious impact on far too many students because those who needed additional support to function in the classroom didn't have it. And in the worst cases, it impacts all the children in the classroom. Not trying to solve that problem actually created an even bigger problem for all students and staff. In my newsletter this week, I'm sharing FAQs on this year's proposal to help address some of the common questions my office gets about the budget. I encourage you to please watch my FY26 proposed operating budget presentation on montgomerycountymd.gov and on your YouTube channel. I also suggest that you can read my budget proposal and feel free to contact my office directly with your questions and comments. Speaking of our budget, as we begin deliberation of the budget for FY26, I'm already looking forward to 2 public forums next week focused on the county's large construction projects like schools, rec centers, and affordable housing partnerships. The first of our community conversations on the capital improvements budget will occur Monday, March 31st at the Wheaton Rec Center, beginning at 7 p.m. Next one will be Thursday, April 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Bethesda Chevy Chase Regional Services Office in Bethesda. These meetings are intended to gather community input on long-term priorities for the fiscal 27 Capital Improvements Program budget. Each conversation will cover major county projects underway or being planned to build new schools, transportation, infrastructure, and parks, which are funded separately from the annual operating budget. It's essential to hear from you on a wide range of topics to ensure that we're using our money wisely, making improvements that help the community. We will have leaders from 6 agencies and departments available to get your feedback on investments in education, the environment, general services, parks and recreation, and transportation. The full schedule and locations of these forums are available on the Community Conversations page at montgomerycountymd.gov. The presentation portion will be televised live on the county cable station, County Cable Montgomery, and live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Food lovers and the industry behind those treats have something to look forward to this weekend. The first ever MoCo Eats Food and Beverage Showcase will feature some of the area's favorite restaurants, breweries, and local food producers. It's an opportunity to try new things, meet the makers, and sample delicious new favorites. The event will be held at the Hilton Rockville on Sunday and Monday, March 30th and 31st. Day 1 will focus on the public. Food enthusiasts can purchase a ticket to explore our area's diverse food and beverages all under one roof. Day 2 will be geared toward the hospitality industry, giving culinary professionals opportunities to learn, network, and grow. Proceeds from the event will benefit the Foundation for Hospitality and Restaurant Management by providing scholarship support for MCPS students interested in careers in this industry. I hope this inaugural event is the start of a new county tradition. The more we can help our local food scene improve and grow, the better it will be for our restaurants and their employees. Please consider attending the event. It'll be fun. For more information, go to visitmontgomery.com. That's a wrap for today, folks. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be back again next week.